Ladies and gentlemen, food banks are becoming more popular throughout the country. People are desperate to find food at food banks. They're going to these locations because either they can't feed themselves and their families or because they need to supplement or find other ways in addition to what they can afford to feed themselves. This is the America that is run by adults in the room. The adults are in charge. Higher food prices around the country are pushing more Americans to food banks. Food banks have more customers as safety net programs and people struggle with inflation. You have some people saying, well, the government should spend more money. Okay, in addition to pumping $10 trillion into the economy from fiscal and monetary stimulus, so you had government checks and you had the Federal Reserve pumping $10 trillion into the economy. We ended economic activity. One of the reasons we have such a high inflation rate is this is our democracy. We can't talk about certain issues openly. We can't have dialogue, discourse, debate, discussion. It is always an apoplectic, truly apoplectic, oftentimes hysterical response where any dissent is viewed as harming the lives of others. So anyone who said, hey, we shouldn't end the U.S. economy was met with, Trump, contrary to the advice of experts, he wants to open up, it's too soon. They gleefully tanked the U.S. economy, okay? That led to a global supply chain problem, broken supply chain. It led to, increased demand, a spike in demand for fossil fuels, for oil and gas. And so a lot of the problems that took place, the foundation of what took place before Biden was in office, but mashed potato brains, president exhumed body made things infinitely worse. We have here Washington Post. So we have U.S. inflation soared 7.9% in the past year. That's ABC News. And we have wholesale inflation. The producer price index is up 10%. The Fed now wants to raise interest rates even more. Hit subscribe to this channel right now. Hit subscribe. I keep saying the stock market crash channel. I'll do a lot more on that. I'm just trying to do at least 3 or 4 good segments on this channel. They're doing very well every day. We're almost at 195,000 subs, people. Hit subscribe to this channel. But part of the problem is that we pumped money into the economy for an absurd purpose. The reasoning was unelected officials and very intelligent people said we needed to tank the economy. Well, there was an alternative. I'm not going to get into any alternatives. I'm not going to get into the reasoning because free debate, discussion, debate, discussion, dialogue, discourse is forbidden in our wonderful democracy. So I'll just say that when you end economic, I don't think that's ever taken place in the history of mankind, a history of civilization, where a country or numerous countries have ended their economies gleefully and then still obsessed over the same issue, even after ending their economy, then opening up their economy, then shutting down their economies, then opening them up again. I mean, so yeah, inflation is a global issue as well because you had a whole bunch of countries doing the same completely apoplectic, irrational, nonsensical thing. When you do that, you cause supply chain breakdown, you cause demand, a skyrocketing demand for fossil fuels, you cause commodity prices to go through the roof, you disrupt supply chains and you disrupt supply and demand for commodities and for fossil fuels like oil and gas and coal. So now suddenly you go from a normal business cycle or normal cycle within these industries to hardly any demand and then skyrocketing demand. And so you have these industries, whether it's oil and gas or shipping, they're not ready for the disruption. That was a choice. Hit subscribe to this channel right now. If you want to support my work, my Patreon is below. What Biden did is he went into the Oval Office and promptly got sued by 13 states, in addition to oil and gas associations and organizations. You had numerous judges side with these oil and gas companies. Gas prices are now through the roof. And then Democrats and media say, well, it's not Biden's fault. Well, why are these oil and gas companies and states, oil-producing states, suing Biden? And check out the segment prior to this one, within the lawsuits and within the judges' rulings, you get actual statements by the judge and by within the litigation stating, yeah, his policies are going to increase the cost of fuel. His policies could lead to millions upon billions of dollars lost in revenue. And it's no secret that what he wanted to do was combat climate change, which is a noble goal. You don't do that immediately after you ended economic activity. You don't do that. And so you have people now lining up for food banks in the wealthiest country in the world, and then you have the Bernie Sanders, AOC, and I used to be the biggest Bernie Sanders booster on the internet, according to the Huffington Post. I used to be the unofficial scribe of Sanders' most hardcore voters, according to the Washington Post. But you see, when I was on the left, I was completely, my mind, I was part of essentially a political cult. Because what they do is they talk about economic justice, and they just, pick a topic and then add justice to it afterwards. And they're in this fantasy world. They don't realize that you can't transform the economy overnight. You can't simply end economic activity and then decide to decarbonize your economy immediately. You can't do the things that Biden wanted to do immediately after the country went through a self-induced economic catastrophe. You had money flowing, you had trillions going into the economy, elevating stock prices. So we have still high valuations, but the underlying economy is terrible. And now you have interest rates going up. And so not only will it be more difficult to fill your gas tank, but it'll be more difficult to obtain a loan. We are heading towards an economic catastrophe. And I've been saying, how many times have I been saying, ladies and gentlemen, save your money, save your money, save your money. Things are going to get worse. They're getting worse. People are going to food banks now. Surging higher food prices around the country are pushing more Americans to food banks. Now, if Vladimir wanted to actually do what some of the people within his country were saying and ban the export of fertilizer, that food prices would skyrocket even further. So they would soar even higher. And you have a problem where everything is more expensive because the original sin was you tanked your economy because unelected officials who were very smart, they're smarter than you. If you're a liberal Democrat watching, I agree with you. Those people are smarter than you. But what happened was the people smarter than you were once again wrong. And they pushed to end economic activity. Democrats and media gleefully abided by their suggestions. And we then opened up the economy like a light switch. Everything from oil, gas, coal, food, construction, everything increased in price because you can't go from virtually zero demand to the whole planet wanting the same commodity or the same product or the same service within a month or two. You went from a great economy under President Trump. See, people, there are liberal Democrats who are wealthy or who have enough money to where they don't need to go to a food bank, but will claim to speak for people who go to food banks and try to help those people. See, the people who are suffering right now going to food banks, they are suffering directly because of the policies of the Biden administration and the policies pushed by media and Democrats and unelected officials. And we'll leave, and I'll speak in the most YouTube-friendly guidelines possible. Okay? Not giving any names, not giving any specific topics that are forbidden to talk about. I'm very, very vague. And so when he came into the Oval Office, President exhumed body, what he did was, well, we're going to focus on infrastructure, which nobody ever stated was a reason why economic activity, nobody ever stated that infrastructure was an impediment to the economy in general growing or functioning. Do you need to address it? Sure. President Trump addressed the infrastructure issue, but you don't have to make it this federal, this focus of the federal government. So in addition to that, Build Back Better tanked because you can't focus on combating climate change when you've just ended your economy and you suddenly increase the cost of doing business 7 times. One of those lawsuits from the oil and gas industry and the 12 states has to do with the Biden administration increasing the cost of business 7-fold pertaining to permits. Okay, they banned oil and gas leasing on federal lands. Then the judges ruled against the Biden administration. Then they continued to try to deny permits. And then they said, well, gas prices aren't our fault. And we had gas around $3 per gallon, less than $3 per gallon. We had around $3 per gallon. We had inflation at less than 2% with Trump. We had economic growth. And if it wasn't for the last year of his presidency, when the entire media and unelected officials were saying, no, actually don't allow economic activity, we had a great economy. We had a great foreign policy. Ukraine was not invaded, and there's a reason why it wasn't invaded. Trump would have negotiated a deal before the tragedy taking place. The sky is literally falling now. We have, or I should say, the economy is in the tank. Foreign policy is terrible, but media, you wouldn't know it. Media generally is happy. They're content. And Democrats say, well, at least the adults are in charge. Everyone else is looking and saying, I'll deal with Trump's mean tweets. I'll deal with Trump's mean tweets so food banks across the country aren't filled up with people. We're in 2022. This is the second year of the adults in charge. That's what they call themselves, the Democratic Party. They're the smartest people, the most moral and ethical. Wealth inequality is worse. Poverty is increasing. Food security or food insecurity, all of these issues are worse. We are worse off as a country. But at least Trump isn't tweeting. My God, did his personality annoy you? Or did his tweets, was it that serious? Really? You're okay now with food banks under Biden's watch? You could say, well, what happened under Trump? Yeah, but who was pushing to end the economy? Anything taking place 2 years into Biden's administration is 100% his fault. You can't say, well, it's a global issue. Yeah, other countries made the same horrendous mistakes. But when you have the oil and gas industry literally suing the administration when they're actually going to court and saying your policies are making everything more expensive, then you really can't circumvent responsibility. When gas prices are up, when food prices are up, when inflation is at 7.9%, when the producer price index is at 10%, and you can't, and the Fed can't really raise interest rates too quickly because the market will really tank. I mean, we're heading towards a devastating stock market crash anyway. We're heading towards a 2008 scenario anyway, unfortunately. I wrote about that in the Federalist. Hit subscribe, but also read that in the Federalist below. But ladies and gentlemen, this is what happens when you have arrogant narcissists who think that Trump's Helsinki conference is more of an abomination than what's taking place in Europe during Biden's presidency. This is what happens when you sow such paranoia and fear over, that you end economic activity and then focus on combating climate change immediately after. And like I said, focus on combating climate change and addressing the infrastructure. These are important things. You might not want to do that immediately after you've the self-induced wound of tanking the economy. And that's why Mashed Potato Brains was the absolute worst president for this time period. Hit subscribe to this channel right now. Look, I don't say this gleefully, and I don't say this with, any happiness. God bless the people who are suffering right now, around the world and within the U.S. I will say this. The road to nowhere is paved with good intentions. The smartest people in the room, the wonderful, morally superior liberal Democrats, and they say this with all due respect and love. Okay? There's no malice in this. It's just, I'm just telling you what my eyes see and what we all see. Everything these wonderful, morally superior people touch turns into the fertilizer that's now 400% more expensive. Every social cause they touch, it's worse. They have the anti-Midas, the reverse Midas touch. Instead of turning into gold, it turns into the fertilizer that's far more expensive now. Think of the social causes that they've adopted. Think now of the country that they're defending now, which I agree with them. But see, they're refusing to actually look at things from the manner of, okay, what can we do right at this moment to settle this in a peaceful manner with a negotiation? They don't really want that. They think that Vladimir's on the ropes. Trump was on the ropes. These people think, the average person who thinks that inflation isn't Biden's fault also believed that Trump was installed by the Kremlin and that Vladimir now is going to be deposed and overthrown. Okay? These people live in their own fantasy world. Crime through the roof. I mean, there's a breakdown. When you have a moment in history where, like, America today, if there was a Watergate moment, if the Democrats broke into and actually physically broke into the RNC's headquarters, the Washington Post, the New York Times, MSNBC, CNN, the Time Magazine, BuzzFeed, the Daily Beast, Mother Jones, The Nation, Esquire, Vanity Fair, The Atlantic, they would all say, well, you know what? It's fine. Not a big deal. We couldn't have a Watergate moment because the Democratic Party it's impossible for them to say that they've done anything wrong. And to cover their immense corruption, they go and try to indict Trump on everything under the sun. They can't do it because he didn't commit a crime. Not because there's any effort to protect him, which there was an effort to protect Clinton, because she did have top secret intelligence with private servers, on private servers. Nobody knows how that intel was transferred. But anyway, I want a Trump-Clinton rematch. We need that. You might say, after all we've been through, we need that? Yes, we do. I dream every day of Madam Secretary versus Trump in 2024. Anyway, hit subscribe to this channel right now. I've explained why in various segments. Hit subscribe to this channel right now. It's only going to get worse. And I say this with all due respect, it's only going to get worse. And the reason it's going to get worse is that there's certain things you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. There's certain things that the Pandora's box is already opened. So hit subscribe to this channel right now. Thank you. And in terms of the economy, hit subscribe. Thank you.